of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, and all panelists from both countries. Our today's webinar is dedicated to the Polish-Indonesia relations in foreign and economic strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, both ministers will give us a broader picture of the political strategies and place of Poland-Indonesia relations in that strategic vision. Now, Minister Mahendra and his welcoming remarks.
Very good morning, Your Excellency Marcin Sedaks, Undersecretary of State for Security, the Americas, Asia and Eastern Policy of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Poland. Your Excellency Ambassador Beata Stosinska, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant morning to all. It is an honor to welcome you all to the webinar on Polish-Indonesia relations in foreign and economic strategies. And it is great to see you again, Mr. Sedaks, and allow me to also warmly greet the audience participating both from Indonesia and Poland. Let me begin by congratulating our host today, Ambassador Stosinska, and her team for the excellent organization of webinar and as part of series of events to commemorate the 65th anniversary of our bilateral relations. Despite the fact that this pandemic has prevented us to commemorate our bilateral anniversary in normal fashion, nevertheless, this is also meaningful to celebrate this momentous event. I'm encouraged to note many activities both of us have planned to commemorate our bilateral relations, although some of them might need to be rearranged and revisited in terms of the forms are mostly taken place. This event, therefore, provides us with excellent opportunity to reaffirm our strong commitment to boost further our cooperation, particularly on economy for our mutual benefits. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as every country is still focusing their efforts to address the pandemic, including embracing the impacts of their respective following waves, I also have learned that many of us have been starting our efforts to recover our economies. This is very difficult for all countries in the world because we know the pandemic do kill people, but at the same time, we also know the excessive lockdowns do kill livelihood. This unprecedented pandemic, of course, have created severe negative impacts to our livelihood and well-being. I have noted with great expectation on the commitment of the international community to strengthen cooperation, including the progress achieved so far on the production of safe and affordable vaccines. Undeniably, the situation has severely affecting the economic well-being of our peoples and disrupted badly the global supply chain. The longer the situation remains not under control, the worse the economic impacts will affect the whole world. Thus, international cooperation very crucial in order to collectively put the situation under control. I have identified many initiatives and collaborative activities undertaken, including in our part of the world, ASEAN. Despite difficulties of organizing physical events, we have invented many creative ideas and still conducting meetings and activities such as this by using digital technology platforms. Thus, addressing the pandemic should remain our main focus for the time being, but recovering our economies should also be placed as the other priorities. And we should not contradict one with the other, because it's no long only create confusion for the people, but it would not address the problem at all. So therefore, let us use this event to address both and identify where we could collaborate by using the important momentum. Indonesia is now bracing for slightly minus 0.3% contraction of economic growth in 2020. However, we are confident that next year the economy would be back on track with 6% or above economic growth. As many countries are currently facing the second wave of infection and restart imposing another restriction, we are hoping that economically we could immediately identify how we are maintaining our trade and investment activities. In Indonesia, we are in a period of transition from what used to be called as more severe restriction of collective gathering toward a new normal, because we learn the hard way, and we also take note the WHO messages that for developing countries, lockdowns do not solve any problem, and in fact create more miseries and new problems. So for us, it is not an option. It is more the opportunity for us to live in the new normal while we have continued focusing and prioritizing addressing the pandemic. This could only be effectively addressed through international collaboration involving many countries and stakeholders by utilizing all international mechanisms available. This concerted effort will not only require innovation and solidarity, but also our utmost restraint in implementing trade restriction. To identify how we could collaborate at the bilateral level, I would like to recommend the following. Let us exchange notes on how we could complement each other in addressing the pandemic through the provision of making available essential medical equipment, medication in the short and medium term. We should join hands at the global level on how we could ensure that the vaccine development and usage involving as many as possible. We are also developing our own vaccine while sourcing from bilateral and multilateral frameworks. We have started implementing travel corridor arrangement with some countries in the region, as well as from outside the region and within ASEAN member states. We also promoting the essential business travel to be taken place as soon as possible while not endangering the safety of the travelers and the public. We have received important visits and making international travel at the ministerial level to expedite cooperation on many areas so as to enable us to effectively contribute in making the situation under control and starting our economic recovery efforts. On tourism, we have also promoted the domestic traveling to ensure that people would start traveling and enjoy their tourism activities while at the same time maintaining very strict health protocol and restrictions that would be implemented in great discipline. We are also inviting investors from many countries to start identifying possibilities of using Indonesia and ASEAN as their production base in our common efforts to strengthen global value chain. We would also welcome those from Poland to invest in using Indonesia as their base. To improve ease of doing business, we have enacted the new legislative job creation law, which has been applauded by many countries and business organizations. The law basically has revised almost 80 other laws that have been indicated as created restraints and hurdles to doing business and investment in Indonesia. Let me also underline the importance for us to collaborate in utilizing the potential of Poland as also production base of our industries in Europe. Our cooperation will certainly contribute in our common efforts to address the pandemic and to help recovering our economies for our mutual benefits. Let us utilize the momentum of our 65th anniversary of diplomatic relations to strengthen cooperation in addressing the pandemic and recovering our economies and beyond. It is essential if we could capitalize our strong partnership in the past 65 years for the benefits of our peoples. Let us also strengthen our efforts to increase the awareness and interactions among our businesses through various activities such as this one. Our two countries have been enjoying a strong and mutually beneficial relationship in various sectors, most notably economic, education, fisheries, and marine, as well as energy. I believe we can do more to make them or to expand more robustly. We have also worked hard to intensify our efforts to increase people-to-people contact, be that through student exchanges, academia, and universities, joint research, or vocational training programs. We can also do more. Frequent engagement of our high-ranking officials should also take place more often. Our record shows that our bilateral trade volume reached $708 million in 2019, an increase of 10.7% compared to the previous year. This is, of course, still very low compared to the actual potentials that we need to unlock. Polish investment in Indonesia reached $0.7 million to finance 24 projects. This is down compared to $20 million in 2018, and again, still very low compared to the actual potentials. I note several potential sectors that Indonesia and Poland should explore: the stay-home economy, digital economy, medical care, fintech, and telemedicine. Another area of collaboration that we can explore are greener and eco-friendly products, such as development or renewable energy sources and electromobility. But I wish to remind us here not to use this issue to place restriction to trade, as unfortunately we have seen its growing trend. Other areas of interest of cooperation are also important, including maritime, legal matters, and higher education. As I mentioned earlier, tourism may not restart soon internationally, but we have to prepare ourselves to recovery on this sector. Let me suggest if all we have discussed could be elaborated further through regular meetings in the form of bilateral joint commission, for instance. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress enough how valuable and important the discussions we are about to have. I encourage you to utilize the webinar today, and this is the appropriate venue for us to innovate new prospects and opportunities. Together we can create a better, brighter, and more promising future for Polish-Indonesia relations. To conclude, I would like to once again congratulate and thank Ambassador Sosinska and her team for providing us this amazing opportunity, and would like to thank the speakers today for giving their valuable insights and time on our topic today. I wish you all a fruitful webinar. Thank you.
Thank Minister Mahendra Sinegar for his valuable welcoming remarks. And now, Minister Przydacz will deliver his keynote speech.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Warsaw. Good morning, Jakarta. No, good afternoon, Jakarta, actually. Dear Madam Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, dear Polish Indonesian friends, dear participants. First of all, let me express my satisfaction that despite the difficulties we are all facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are able to hold this important webinar today. This event is a part of the celebrations of the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Poland and Indonesia. And it is the second webinar that I'm taking part in, with the previous one being held in September. I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude to the organizers of today's webinar, that also commences the Polish Days 2020 in Indonesia. We all know that the organization of such an event requires a great deal of time and energy. I regret my honorable counterpart, Minister Mahendra, is not being able to take part in this webinar live, which is a bit disappointing, but I'm glad that he was able to share with us his remarks in the form of a recorded message. Ladies and gentlemen, the subject of today's webinar is Polish-Indonesian relations in foreign and economic policy strategies. But in order to discuss our bilateral relations, let me present you with a brief summary of Poland's foreign policy priorities. Poland is an ambitious and future-oriented country. We run an active diplomatic agenda, having to navigate a constantly changing international context, with COVID-19 magnifying pre-existing negative trends in international politics. The coronavirus is an unprecedented phenomenon, which, unlike previous pandemics, SARS or MERS, is truly of global scale. It exposed the vulnerabilities of global governance and laid bare and basic truth. Nation states are the primary actors that have to take full responsibility for the security and well-being of their citizens. As a result of the coronavirus, a rivalry between superpowers has become fiercer. It also now openly comprises areas which were so far politically neutral, such as healthcare, which deepens global friction. Hence, the second decade of the 21st century sees the world less stable and unfortunately predictable. The international order established in the wake of the Cold War, when the West defeated communist totalitarianism, with Poland and other countries of Central Europe rejoining the free world, has in recent years been steadily eroding. There are a number of reasons for this, but three stands out in particular. First, lack of an adequate response to Russia's revisionist policy, dating back to at least 2007, 2008. For example, Putin's defiant Munich speech or aggression against Georgia. Everyone can see the results of the war in Ukraine, which undermine Europe's security architecture, or observe Russia's meddling in domestic affairs of other countries, especially in the electoral processes. Secondly, the economic and social crisis. The financial crisis of 2008 in the Eurozone dragged almost every European economy into recession and generated the uncontrolled migration flows. And last but not least, the crisis of multilateralism manifesting itself in three forms: the crisis of leadership, the crisis of relevance, and the crisis of legitimization. Taking into consideration the deteriorating international situation and having in mind fundamental Polish national interests, our current foreign policy strategy focuses on three interlinked priorities. First, security; second, growth; and the third, shaping a positive image of Poland. As regard the security, NATO and close relations with the US remain the cornerstone of our policies. Poland fulfills all its obligations as a NATO member and is an ardent advocate of the alliance's eastern flank. Socio-economic growth that we've enjoyed in recent years provided us with resources needed for an ambitious military development. We meet NATO's benchmark of 2% of GDP on military spending, and we intend to spend 2.5% of our GDP by 2030. This is crucial for Poland's regional, European, but also global safety. We've been successful in upholding NATO presence in the region, as well in significantly strengthened military cooperation with our key ally, the United States. The increasing number of American soldiers on the Polish ground is a testimony to that. We will foster close cooperation with the US, as US-Polish relations are strategic and immune to domestic political developments. We cooperate closely with Central and Eastern European countries, building the security resilience to the whole region. Poland continues to collaborate with the Baltic states and Romania in reinforcing NATO's eastern flank, with the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary in the framework of the Visegrad battle group, and with Lithuania and Ukraine in a joint trilateral brigade. Bucharest 9, B9, a joint Polish-Romanian initiative, makes the voice of the region better heard. In July, we took over the presidency in the Visegrad group with the motto "Back on Track." Together with our partners from the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Slovakia, we want to mitigate the economic and social fallout of COVID-19. We've been supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity and its Euro-Atlantic aspirations. This goes far beyond our security interests and pertains to values which Russia flagrantly violates. How we react to Russia's misdeeds? Here in the region and elsewhere. There is actually a litmus test of the democratic world's readiness to defend the fundamental principles. That pragmatism and realism constitute the basis of our policy towards Russia. We're always open to a frank and open dialogue with Moscow, but as we all know, it takes two to tango. With the recent post-elections development in Belarus, we can observe the peoples in the region yearn freedom. We are very much supportive of the quest for democracy, free and fair elections, and a prospect for a change. It is not disputable that for nearly three decades now, Belarus has been bogged down in a post-Soviet, economically inefficient and increasingly authoritarian regime. We support sanctions against the part of Belarusian authorities, those responsible for electoral malpractice and acts of violence against protesters. We believe that EU, as an expression of solidarity, should step up its assistance to Belarus to enable democratic and economic transformation. We are also a security provider engaged in joint operations beyond our immediate vicinity. Thus, we are not only concerned by direct challenges, but with a broader perspective, act as a responsible stakeholder of international politics. Recently, Polish troops have returned to UN mission in Lebanon. The European Union is key to our economic development. As an active EU member state, we clearly put forward our vision of a strong, coherent, economically robust EU, which respects the principle of subsidiarity and solidarity. Poland believes that the single market is key for the economic development of the EU. Therefore, the EU's priorities should be to further deepen the internal market, to identify and eliminate existing barriers. And in particular, Poland advocates further liberalization of services. A multi-speed union, in fact, means a divided union, which would weaken its global role. And in an increasingly geopolitical realpolitik and in fact, Hobbesian world, we want the EU to be an active international player. That is why we contribute to EU global efforts, for example, in the form of development aid, as the EU remains the largest donor in the world. But this also entails a better coordination of member states' industrial policies and a joint approach to 5G. The 3Cs initiative, since its inception in 2015, has become an important platform of cooperation along north-south axis between 12 EU member states from Central and Eastern Europe, which still have to grapple with underdevelopment, a legacy of the pre-1989 era. Infrastructural, digital, and energy connectivity is key to tapping the economic potential of the region. Getting rid of development and wealth gap between Western and Central Europe is the right strategy to reduce systemic stresses, all the more so in times of COVID-19. With the celebration of the 4th anniversary of the Solidarity movement this year, we are bringing back the Polish path to freedom, which has been an inspiration to others. Today, solidarity does not only stand for historic movement, but is a key tenet of our foreign policy. It serves as a beacon for our actions in international fora. Be it in the UN Security Council in 2018-2019, and now in the UN Human Rights Council 2020-2022. This is how Poland builds its image as a responsible, active, and credible player. Ladies and gentlemen, having presented a bird's-eye view on the Polish priorities in the international arena, I will now try to make the points that create potential for enhancing Polish-Indonesian relations. Poland and Indonesia are located 10,000 kilometers from each other. That huge distance has not been an obstacle in developing solid and close relations during the last 65 years. In recent years, our cooperation has become even more dynamic in various areas, including political dialogue, economic cooperation, cultural and educational dimension, as well as security. We've had many important bilateral visits including the visit of our foreign ministry to Indonesia in 2018 and of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia to Poland in September last year. We have also identified many potential fields for mutually beneficial cooperation. Taking this opportunity, I'd like to express my hope that despite our geographical distance, our relations will continue to develop successfully, serving the interests of both our countries and societies. Let me also emphasize that upgrading bilateral relations with Indonesia is part of Poland's long-term strategy, as we recognize Indonesia's role as a regional power and the leader of ASEAN. Today, the first thing that comes to mind in terms of cooperation is, of course, the common fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. After all, this is the reason that stopped us from holding a physical seminar today. Both our countries support multilateral vaccine initiatives and wish to strengthen the role of relevant international agencies in the fight against COVID-19. At the same time, it seems advisable to enhance bilateral cooperation in the health-related and pharmaceutical sector. The coronavirus is a threat not only to our health and economy, but also to our security, environment. In this respect, after having analyzed the current global security environment and taken into account its rapid deterioration owing to issues that I mentioned before, I'm glad to point out that both our countries are strong advocates of the rule-based international order. Poland's effort to preserve peace and to ensure ever greater international stability and predictability are a constant factor in our strategic planning. Primacy of international law and respect of sovereignty is indisputable both for Poland and for Indonesia. Both our countries cooperate in a number of international organizations and forums, including the UN, ASEM, WTO, IMF, and World Bank. We highly value our cooperation during our membership of the United Nations Security Council in 2019, and for the next 2 years, we'll have the opportunity to work hand in hand in the Human Rights Council. Both our countries are strong supporters of universal values such as freedom, democracy, sovereignty, and respect for human rights. In that regard, we perceive Indonesia as a very important partner. Poland, similarly like Indonesia, believes in democracy and the market-based economy. This is not only a theoretical deliberation, but it is a profound question of a civilizational choice with long-term implications. Similar case being with respect to human rights and religious tolerance, two issues which are highly prized and of profound importance both in Poland and in Indonesia. I'm honored and proud that in several days, on the 16th and 17th of November, Poland will host the conference 2020 Ministerial to Advance Freedom of Religion or Belief. And I must admit that we are looking forward to Indonesia's participation in this event. Moreover, we are looking forward to the fourth round of the Polish-Indonesian intercultural and interfaith dialogue, which will take place in the second half of the 2021 in Indonesia. It will be a perfect opportunity for our scholars and experts in the above mentioned areas to exchange opinions and ideas. Going back to the question of security, I think it is also fair to say that there are some operational activities that could bring us closer together. This cooperation could result in closer collaboration of our defense industries in many areas, including drones or radar technologies. Polish and Indonesian strategists, planners, and analysts could cooperate closer. As we know, negotiations on the Memorandum of Understanding between the War Studies University in Warsaw and Indonesian Defense University in Jakarta are taking place. I hope that cooperation between our think tanks and universities will be developed further. As regards security, we must also recognize now emerging threats such as cyber security, which the COVID-19 pandemic that forced us to move from the real world to the virtual one has made us even more accurately aware of. We are looking forward to the development of cooperation in designing a global framework for effective cybersecurity cooperation and see the potential of strengthening cooperation in the ITC sector. Poland is ready to offer state-of-the-art fintech solutions that can be tailored to the needs of Indonesian banks and e-wallet enterprises. Enhancing infrastructural connectivity is another vital component of security. For Poland, increasing the connectivity between Baltic and Central European countries that come together in the 3 Seas initiative is of key importance. The value of this connectivity is not only important in terms of security, but also in terms of economic development of the region as a whole. This is also why Poland supports the efforts of the EU and Indonesia to build connectivity. I'm confident that our infrastructure and logistics industries can find synergy and areas of possible cooperation in this field. The same being true for cooperation in the shipbuilding industry. We already have a solid foundation in this field. As back in 2007, Poland delivered several patrol boats to the Indonesian Marine Police. Last but not least, we cannot forget economic cooperation. I discussed this issue extensively during my speech at the previous Polish Indonesian webinar. Nevertheless, without going into too much detail and as not to repeat myself, let me just point out a few crucial issues. Last year, the volume of our trade turnover surpassed $1 billion. This is, of course, far below our capacities. We are glad to know that the COVID-19 pandemic did not cause too much harm to our trade exchange in the first half of this year. According to statistics, our turnover reached almost $470 million. But Indonesian export to Poland remained 3-4 times higher than ours to Indonesia. We felt that we should work together to reduce this imbalance. Taking into account the fact that our products vary, I am of the opinion that our economies are complementary rather than competing with each other. We should work together to explore and benefit from this complementarity. As there are many options on the table, some of which I've already mentioned in my speech. Still a huge potential remains to be tapped also in other sectors like the food and agriculture sector, cosmetics, and climate and environmental related technology, just to name a few. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent global crisis are putting the whole world and our countries to a very harsh test. However, I'm confident that this situation also creates opportunities for enhancing Polish-Indonesian cooperation. We are facing a world that is changing ever faster, but one thing remains unchanged. Indonesia and Poland are still prospective partners, destined to grow and destined to cooperate. I wish you all a fruitful discussion and sincerely hope that we'll be able to hold the next Polish-Indonesian seminar in the real world, not in the virtual one. I also hope that you will enjoy the rest of the events which are organized by the Polish Embassy in Jakarta as part of Polish Days 2020 in Indonesia. Dziękuję, terima kasih, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister Przydacz, for your valuable speech. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We are very grateful. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we all see, there is a lot of room and potential in our political and economic strategies for the relations between Poland and Indonesia. As the economic cooperation plays a special role at our strategies, I would like to open now our panel discussion. We have 5 special guests today. I will introduce you. Madam Shinta Kamdani, Deputy Chair of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kadin, also known as a successful businesswoman. Aleksander Siemaszko, Vice Director of the Trade and International Cooperation Department at the Ministry of Development of Poland.
Good morning.
Mr. Alma Karma, Director of Promotion Development at BKPM, Indonesia Investment Coordinating Board. Mr. Tomasz Szymczak, Director of Export Center at the Polish Investment Trade Agency, the agency which is represented also here in Jakarta as a Foreign Trade and Investment Office. And Dr. Dino Patid Jalal, Founder and Chairman of the Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia and former Indonesian Ambassador to the United States and very good friend of us. I would like to ask each of panelists to say a few words, approximately 5-7 minutes maximum, and after all speeches, we will start the question and answer session. Questions should come via chat room. So let's start. First, I would like to ask Madam Kamdani, to what extent the Indonesian entrepreneurs perceives cooperation with Poland as a business opportunity? And what are the expectations of the Indonesian business from Polish partners and Polish administration? Shinta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I think for this, thank you for including me in this event. I think during COVID, we have to do everything virtually. So unfortunately, we can't meet in person. But I prepared 4 slides, how to foster Indonesian-Poland business-to-business relations. So I would like to start by perhaps giving you the context first. I think we are all aware that Indonesia and Poland has not tapped to the full potential of our economy. I think Pak Mahendra has just mentioned that as well. But I would like to show you how much we are lagging behind in tapping each other economic potential compared to our peers in our respective region. So data shown in this slide testify how ASEAN, let alone Indonesia, is not a significant business partner for Poland as of yet. I think Poland import from ASEAN in 2019 only about 6.92 billion US dollar, or about 2.8% of Poland total import from the world. Among ASEAN countries, Indonesia is also still ranked 4th, which is low. Needless to say, trade presence is very insignificant also for Poland, at less than 1% of import shares. So in the next slide, we can see that I want to show how you are actually to us. As you see that EU actually is the main trading partner for Indonesia. It's about 7% of our total import from the world in 2019. This is significant because this percentage is actually enough to put EU as Indonesia's 4th biggest import source from the world, below China, Singapore, and Japan. However, as you can see, Poland's presence is still overshadowed by a lot of your peer EU members' country. And if we see Poland investment in Indonesia also hardly reached $1 million US per annum in the last 5 years. This is according to the BKPM report. However, what is interesting is to see in the table that our trade is growing within the span of 5 years. Your import from Indonesia increased from 672 million US dollar in 2015 to 768 million in 2019. So it's about 14 growth. And Indonesia import from Poland also expand from 150 million US dollar in 2015 to 224, or about 49.3% growth. So thanks to the jump in import on iron and steel products, and of course machinery from Poland since 2018. The last slide, in the essence of Indonesia business interest in strengthening and expanding our integration into the global supply chain, in translation to our bilateral relation, the goal is to simply make Indonesia and Poland a more integrated part of each other's supply chain. So this is really our target. This is an agenda that Indonesia and Poland should also be aiming in the future through deepening and expanding the trade and investment activities among our two business communities. Unfortunately, when the presence of our respective countries are overshadowed by other countries, Indonesia business typically will not be too eager or motivated to expand and explore the market independently, primarily when economic crisis is still looming our economy. On Indonesian business part, I can point out that a number of challenges for us to expand and integrate further into the Poland supply chains. And you can see some of these challenges on the slide: lack of exchange of information of some business potential, lack of interaction among businesses. Although I have to say, Ambassador, and I have to appreciate the work that you have done in trying to make more of this business-to-business interaction. Trade volume vis-a-vis the business efficiency and competitiveness in each other market, and also the non-consistent bilateral framework to foster more economic relations. So these are some of the strategies that we propose. More G2G and G2B effort to stimulate interactions. Also cooperation for continuous promotion between Indonesia and Polish trade and investment, and technical cooperation to facilitate trade and investment, which may conform to Indonesia-EU SIPA, and of course the support in the speedy conclusion. Now, export to Poland will not be seen lucrative or promising enough by Indonesian business if the trade volume is too small. So because of the lack of economic of scale, will increase business costs and supply chain costs that make Indonesian export products less competitive for Polish businesses compared to other competitors in the market. This Indonesia and Poland need to work together to cherry pick which export commodity that Indonesia can supply to Poland in bulk to create significant economic scale for a competitive trade for Indonesia in Polish market, and create consistent promotion to it in Poland market for a sustainable and a more continuous trade. On the technical cooperation to facilitate trade and investment, the idea is to create a form of sort of early outcomes to Indonesia-EU SIPA conclusion that can be immediately used to accelerate trade facilitation and investment facilitation activities between Indonesia and Poland. This can be done in many ways. For example, exchange information on prominent private standard in Polish market, cooperation in product labeling, especially on export product from Indonesia that is required to have labels in Polish language, cooperation to acknowledge test results in Indonesian labs that are international certified or recognized to reduce the need to retest to enter Polish market. Also on the investment side, although later Pak Alma will perhaps go deeper on this, we see that definitely there is a lot of potential from the investment side. Indonesia, as you know, mentioned by Pak Mahendra, has just passed the Omnibus Law, the law of job creation. It really shows the structural reform that it was really already, we've been waiting for, is now here to improve the investment climate in Indonesia. And therefore, we want to open more potential investors to come. Now, if we see, I don't want to, I mentioned the number, but what is important is now, what are actually the sectors? I mean, we've been having some delegation coming also from Poland. As you know, both ambassadors has been very active, but I would like to specify some of the potential cooperation in terms of investment. And for example, infrastructure, logistic, I think we've been talking about water management, waste management, and all this green technology, I think is very much, especially due to COVID, has been the green technology has been very much now the focus of many businesses. Also, we talk about cosmetic, generic, pharmaceutical, some of the food and beverage, but we've also talked about many areas that now, because of COVID, like healthcare, has been a quite significant importance to many of our businesses. So we've seen some shift in interest, and we've also seen, because of COVID, a lot of business are doing transformation. But we really now seek for technology. I think we talk about digital economy. That is really the future. So there are many potential of opportunities that can be grabbed immediately. So I would like to kind of look into this from both sides. And Kadin Indonesia, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, are ready to facilitate both businesses to identify those priority sectors that we can immediately unleash for further cooperation. Thank you very much.
Yes, terima kasih Ibu Shinta Kamdani. Now I would like to ask Mr. Siemaszko to take the floor, and I have questions for you. So in what way Polish-Indonesia cooperation fits into the second one is a free trade EU-Indonesia agreement, how you see the potential and benefit for entrepreneurs of this agreement for entrepreneurs, Polish and Indonesian entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Terima kasih banyak, Madam Ambassador. Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Economic Development, Labour and Technology. I do believe that I will be able to answer both questions with the aid of a short PowerPoint presentation that will have two main goals. One is to present Poland as a viable economic partner and to seek synergies with the Indonesian path of development, and the other one is obviously a short analysis of EU-Indonesian FTA that is currently being negotiated, and that the expected benefits of said FTA. We have to bear in mind one thing. Poland is a large domestic market, but it should be viewed as a part of a larger structure, both regionally as part of the Central and Eastern Europe and Three Seas Initiative region that expands from Estonia in the north up to Croatia and Romania in the south, and consists of a number of rapidly developing countries in the EU, and obviously is a part of the single market, as Minister Przydacz said rightly a while earlier. These two features means that, if we can scroll to the next slide, please. These two features mean that Poland is a gateway, could be viewed as a gateway market for the both European and regional subdivisions from economic point of view. It consists of the largest seaport in the Baltic Sea, the container port in Gdańsk, large ports in the Baltic Sea that can be used to ship goods and whether we're talking about imports or exports that can be later transported to the in the whole region, but also obviously should be viewed as a part of the as a domestic market in itself, one that has been developing rapidly in the last 30 years. We were the only OECD country, apart from Australia, that has experienced 30 years of uninterrupted growth, averaging a very healthy GDP average of around 3% growth annually, which is outstanding for European standards. If we can go to the next slide, please. However, I've mentioned that Poland has been the only country in OECD, except for Australia, that has experienced 30 years of uninterrupted growth. That is obviously true until this year. We've also been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. We expect economic contraction of around 3% of GDP. Now, the data varies from study to study, and obviously will depend on the depth of the second wave of pandemic and the depth of the lockdown measures introduced and the longevity of the lockdown measures introduced. However, what is sure right now is that Poland has weathered the pandemic storm better than most countries in the EU. We've seen, thank you very much, we've seen the GDP drop being the third smallest in the whole of EU, only after Finland and Lithuania, meaning that the bulk of Polish economy, the bulk of our manufacturing, services, trade, and agriculture have managed to function relatively uninterrupted despite the pandemic. That comes from a number of reasons. One of them is the relatively small share of GDP created by tourism or hospitality industries, and a large portion of GDP coming from manufacturing, and it's much easier to maintain full productivity or almost full productivity with pandemic restrictions in a factory rather than in a service-based economy. The other one is the relatively large share of business shared services and digital services in Polish economy, which were easy to move to remote work, meaning that our both GDP growth and unemployment and the salary levels have remained relatively unscathed by the pandemic wave. That is not to say that we are untouched by the pandemic. Our trade has suffered relative to the fall of demand from our largest partners. 80% of our trade is conducted within the European single market with Germany, Czech Republic, Italy, France, Netherlands, and other European countries. But that means that it only prompts us to seek to diversify trade more. Hence this webinar, hence our keen interest in Indonesia. If we can go further, please. Thank you very much. Now, I won't repeat the data since it was already given by Minister Przydacz, given by previous speakers. However, I would like to point out that the Polish-Indonesian trading trends and dynamic were very positive in the last few years, and we seek to continue these trends. Now, the key, how to do it? The key is to seek synergies between the Indonesian path of development and what Polish economy can offer, and obviously the other way around. Where we concentrate our efforts in industries and services, and what the Indonesian economy has to offer. So far, our main experts were focused around the electromechanical devices, metallurgy, but also the food and agri sector, while we were importing, again, devices, light industry, resources, including rubber. That means that the trade was relatively simple and straightforward. Now, there are a number of reasons why it has happened so far, but the main reason I think is the relative lack of information between our business communities, considering the when it comes to the opportunities, business opportunities between two countries. If we can move forward, thank you very much. While we in the ministry sought to identify the main tenets of future cooperation, we looked what was being done in Indonesia, we looked what we can offer, and considering that a number of speakers already mentioned these sectors, I think we hit the right spots, meaning medical equipment, hospital equipment, environment protection, power industry, and IT, ICT industries. Now, if we were to dwell a bit deeper into that, what does it mean? It means that we think Poland can offer necessary inputs and global value chains for Indonesia when it comes to securing the medical supplies and know-how in helping digitize the Indonesian economy, but also helping to spearhead the green transformation. Now, we won't pretend that we are an environmental champion compared to some other European economies, but our experience in moving from coal to a renewable-based energy sector is unique in Europe, and our both industries and technologies that we offer are much closer to Indonesian energy sector and experiences than say some some greener countries. We know the challenges that are involved in moving away from coal to greener energy production. We know how costly it is, and we know how to do it in a cost effective way, meaning that both Indonesian households and industries could profit from our technologies and know-how. When it comes to, we know that Indonesia is rapidly developing a number of water-intensive industries, garment and textile industry among them, for instance. And on the other hand, Poland is facing a challenge of effective water management. Hence, we are developing our own domestic technologies to improve wastewater treatment, circular economy when it comes to the water sector, and we can offer that in a cost-effective way for Indonesian industries. I think that these shared experiences are actually crucial. Now, the main challenge is to provide adequate information for that. And if we can move to the next slide, please. And here comes the EU-Indonesia FTA. Before I move to the facts, which I think that are pretty well known, that the agreements are, the negotiations were launched in 2016. The last round of negotiations was held in June, and both sides believe that this FTA will provide crucial and tangible benefits for both EU and Indonesia, especially in the SME sector. I want to address a very important psychological effect of said FTAs. I mentioned that a Polish business community is used to trading with EU economies or on FTA rules basis. Should the negotiations be concluded, it would put Indonesia on the spot. It would drastically increase visibility of Indonesian business opportunities. We've seen, for instance, a similar increase of interest in some other ASEAN countries once they have concluded their own agreements with the EU. So apart from an obvious reduction in tariffs and an obvious reduction in the legal environment when it comes to non-trade barriers, non-tariff trade barriers, there is a profound psychological and, let me say, PR effect when it comes to an EU-Indonesia FTA for a Polish business community. If you could move forward, please. Now, the trade benefits of such FTA would obviously ultimately depend on its composition. Whether the more ambitious we get, the more profound we get when it comes to non-tariff trade barriers for when it comes to sanitary and phytosanitary measures, when it comes to regulatory convergence, when it comes to improving labor and environment standards, the bigger the benefits we can expect for both the EU, but especially for Indonesia. We think that such an agreement would provide a net effect of 2 to 2.4 billion euros increase of EU welfare, and 2.8 to up to 3.2 billion euro increase in Indonesian welfare, respectively. Part EU-Indonesia FTA is a part of the new wave of free trade agreements negotiated by the European Union. What this means that we take a much more ambitious approach to non-trade aspects of the agreement, meaning the environmental and labor standards, meaning a stronger focus on the most vulnerable industries, such as the smaller and medium-sized enterprises, meaning a stronger focus on the role of women in economy. We want to negotiate an ambitious agreement that will provide tangible benefits for both countries and would provide tangible benefits for the workforce involved. If we, yes, I think that's, I don't want to take too much time, and I think that I already used my time slot, so thank you very much. But we'd be very happy to provide any answers to potential queries and questions. Here's my email. Feel free to contact the ministry. We will answer any question submitted in English, and we'll try our best to answer it in a comprehensive and exhaustive way. We want to support the business community, we want to support B2B relations, and we want to dispel any myths or worries when it comes to engaging Polish market, when it comes to investments or trade. So please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander, for your very interesting presentation. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Alma Karma to ask about the strategy of Indonesia to improve investment climate, whether strategy is already existed, and what is the place for Poland in this very strategy?
Thank you, Mrs. Ambassadors. Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Jakarta to inviting BKPM to present to the business community current updates regarding investment in Indonesia. The current COVID-19 pandemic has caused significant disruption in the global economy and then causing the domino effect to social economy and financial aspect. Indonesia also experienced a slowdown during Q2 2020 with the growth plummeted to -5.32% due to the restriction on economic activities in accordance with the government's COVID-19 mitigation efforts. UNCTAD has predicted global FDI to experience downturns of 30 to 40% during the 2020 period. The indication has actually been reflected by Indonesian investment realization in Q2 2020, with FDI decreased by minus 6.9% compared to previous year. And during the first semester, from January to June 2020, investment realization in Indonesia reached about 402.6 trillion rupiah, or 49.3% of our 2020 target of 817.2 trillion rupiah. Even though investment realization in Q2 2020 experienced a downfall of 4.3% compared to the same period in 2019, we are confident that as the economy bounces back, investment realization will rise again in the upcoming period. And during the Q2, April to June 2020, the investment realization reached about 191.9 trillion rupiah, with the following top 5 FDI in Indonesia is Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Japan, and South Korea. For Poland itself was ranked 44th during the period 2015 through to first semester 2020. Based on sectors is the biggest sectors that reach 55%, following on secondary 34%, primary 11%. And for investment distribution, mostly 52.4% located in Java, following in the 47.6% outside Java. Top 5 AD location are in West Java, is about 38%, Jakarta 24%, East Java 50%, Central Java 12%, and Banten about 11%. Foreign direct investment FDI recession during the first semester in 2020 period, reached about 125.6 trillion rupiah. And meanwhile, domestic direct investment reached about 207 trillion rupiah. And investment in Java accounted for 51.9%. And then meanwhile, outside of Java accounted to 48.1%. The total of investment in Indonesia in the first semester of 2020, as a result, is 556,164 local workers absorption. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 5 years, Poland investment realization has absorbed local workforce about 1,691 workers. The majority of the Poland investment is concentrated in rubber and plastic and industry, is about 35%, followed by food industry, is about 27%, food crops, plantations, animal husbandry is about 70%, trade and repair about 6%, housing, industrial, estate and office about 6%. The top Poland investment is located in Java, followed by Bali and Nusa Tenggara and Sulawesi. In the midst of this pandemic, BKP is committed to maintain conducive investment climate by facilitating both existing and new investors and provide incentive to companies. We facilitate new investments as well as existing companies' investment plan. We facilitate the debottlenecking of investment project. We facilitate relocation of investment. We provide support of foreign workers or investors coming to Indonesia during the pandemic. We also support healthcare related investment. And then we see investment as a means it's meant to increase our productivity and competitiveness Therefore, we are also focusing to attract more investment in our sectors, in our priority sectors. First, labor-intensive industry, export-oriented industry, pharmaceutical and medical device industry, automotive industry, renewable energy, infrastructure, mining industry, which will create added value, electronic industry, food and agriculture industry, and in reaching sustainable development goals, and optimization of natural resource and building resilience in the industry sector is required. BKPM also encouraged investment in value-added industry sectors such as the development of downstream industry. BKPM commit to facilitate investors from the initial state until investment realization, including to facilitate any investment hurdles being faced. Currently, we are facilitating investment project with the investment realization potential of 708 trillion rupiah, in which 58% of it, that's about 410 trillion rupiah, has been facilitated. Slide 26. Presidential instructions, number 7, year 2019, has mandated BKPM as the forefront of accelerating ease of doing business in Indonesia. So the president issued this regulation to streamline business licensing throughout the BKPM and grants the agency the authority to review policies deemed as unfavorable for investors. So this kind of breakthrough is one of example of our commitment to set an enable environment for investment. Starting a business in Indonesia is now a more measurable, clearer, and simpler. With now, when considering your potential investment location, of course, economic zone are a strategic choice due to its specialized facilities and incentive. Given Indonesia's location advantage, rich natural resources, there's a cluster of growing opportunities for investment in various sectors, including manufacturing, downstream industry, agriculture, tourism, etc. Currently, Indonesia has 15 special economic zones, 4 free trade zones, 118 industry-tested large scale, and 1,360 bounded zone and 91 bounded logistic. To facilitate investment in the zone, the government of Indonesia has instituted a number of incentive targeting investors setting up with the special economic zones and industrial park. And mentioned earlier, BKPM is committed to facilitate investors from the initial state until investment realization. Currently, we have received interest from global companies around the world, who are moving their opportunities, moving their operation to Indonesia. Chairman of BKPM has established a special task force to carry out President Jokowi's mandate to seize the opportunity of a company's relocation. This task force is designed to facilitate and provide end-to-end service for investors interested to relocate or diversify their investment location to Indonesia. And yes, companies that have decided to relocate their investments, about 7 companies with potential investment value of around $880 million US. Companies that have been intention to relocate and or diversify their investments, about 17 companies with a potential value of $32 billion US. The existence of this investment show that the business opportunity in Indonesia are indeed still wide open. Also can be a momentum and bring fresh air for the business world in Indonesia to remain strong and excited amidst the difficulties in the current pandemic atmosphere. In order to facilitate companies relocating to Indonesia, President Jokowi has given instruction to prepare an industrial designated area in Batang Regency, covering an area of more than 4,000 hectares located in the KTPN 9 land. That's the Indonesian state-owned plantation company. Developing an investment-friendly industrial park, competitive land price, and more convenient licensing process. Batang Industrial Park is strategically located close to Semarang Ahmad Yani Airport and Tanjung Mas Seaport. So they close the airport and seaport, and the Trans-Java Railway and Highway network. Since 2009, Indonesia has also reformed investment incentive policies, regulation on tax allowance, tax holiday, and import duty exemption are now more investor friendly. So we have also implemented online single submission, OSS, that offer one state of processing business permits and one of format of business licensing. With this new established one online single submission system, starting a business in Indonesia is now measurable, clearer, and simpler. I think thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to thank again for Police Embassy in Jakarta for organizing this prominent meeting. I would like to forward to hearing any input or initiative from the Police Embassy in Jakarta. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih Pak Al-Makarma. Now I would like to ask Dr. Dino Jalal to take the floor with the question, what geopolitical and economic factors will affect the economic cooperation between Poland and Indonesia in the next decade, and how Poland and Indonesia should adjust their strategies to adapt to changing conditions. Please, Dino, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Biata. And the answer is I don't know. But look, I'm not going to speak long because I know you want to get into the Q&A, and I think you only invite me because I'm for my good looks, I think, because I don't know anything about the economics, between Indonesia and Poland, which is a very specific subject. But I know there's a great deal of potential, and I know we can have ambitious targets to increase the trade from its current 600 million at the moment to much higher numbers. And I remember the last time I went to Poland also, I met with a number of Indonesian students. I think there are over 300 Indonesian students there, and they're very happy. They love studying in Poland. They're treated very well. So I think that's definitely one of the areas of cooperation between the two countries. Strategically, I heard your vice minister spoke about Poland's strategic environment, and I think we see how Poland has strategic concerns about the geopolitical landscape in Europe. He mentioned about Russia, the concern about Russia and what is going on in Ukraine and Belarus and other things. And the vice minister also mentioned that Poland attached great importance to its military alliance with the United States, owing to the strategic concerns that Poland has in its neighborhood, right? Indonesia is very different, as you know full well. When we see Russia very differently from how you see Russia, because you're in the neighborhood and we are far away. And in fact, Indonesia and Russia has if the closest part of the cooperation is on the arms military cooperation, right? We have some MiGs from Russia that is in our Air Force, and also there are a number of deals being made on military or arms purchase. Yeah. For us, we have developed a greater sense of strategic confidence in our region, because there is, we don't, in the past we used to be very insecure, because major powers trying to interfere in our domestic relations and supporting separatist movements and so on. But now we feel much more confident. We don't face any meaningful strategic threats from outside Indonesia. We are a proud democracy like Poland, and we are also a strong member of ASEAN, right? We are seeing the rising tension, not rising tension, it's actually a very full-blown competitive rivalry between the United States and China. And that bothers us, right? Because, our region has a long history where if the major powers are not getting along, the negative impact is felt in the region, politically, strategically, sometimes economically, right? So we are seeing the United States a bit different than how Poland sees it. We have not been, we're not comfortable, for example, with the latest anti-China policy launched by Secretary Pompeo in his recent speeches throughout the United States, right, where he has a blanket attack against China on trade, on investment, on technology, on TikTok, on South China Sea, which some of the concerns we share, of course, on education, even on almost everything. There's this sense of strong, aggressive oppositions towards China, and it's very ideological. We in Indonesia are not comfortable with that. I think all of Southeast Asia are not comfortable with that. We don't want to be turned into a region that is against China, because that is not in our strategic interest. We attach great importance of playing as ASEAN centrality in the affairs of the region. And there's no way we can play that role if we are against one of the major powers, be it China or the United States or Japan or Russia or anybody, right? So our strategic policy aims actually to maintain not neutrality, but good relations with everybody, with all the major powers, with the hope that we can use these great relations to nudge them to get along better and behave in a positive way towards international order. We are now seeing the elections with in the United States with great interest, like you in Poland, I'm sure. And I think Biden will win. There's no doubt about it. And I think we should expect two things from it. One, if Biden wins, the West will be more coherent than before, because in the past, under President Trump, we saw the West becoming quite incoherent, divided, and without a clear direction, especially between the United States and Europe. Right? I'm sure this is something that you see in Europe as well. But with Biden coming, I think the Western countries will become more coherent than before. And we expect to see a stronger foreign policy president in Joe Biden, because Joe Biden spent decades handling foreign policy, and I think he will be the most foreign policy ready American presidents in recent memory. Right? There are not too many. Not even Barack Obama was a ready foreign policy president. Not Clinton, who came from Arkansas, and not Bush, right, and so on. Right? So he's gonna be foreign policy president. He's gonna probably return some degree of strategic coherence to the West. And he is also going to want to play some degree of global leadership in the world, the way the United States did prior to Trump. Right? Of course, he's going to be very tied down with the task of providing jobs, because that's the #1 issue for America. So whatever he does internationally, it has to conform somehow to his needs to provide jobs and return the US economy to normalcy, right? Just a couple minutes on what Indonesia and Poland can address together. Look, I think that the special thing about Indonesia and Poland is that first, we don't have historical baggage. Like, you never colonized us, and we never wanted to colonize you, even though we wanted to, but you're just too far away, and it's too cold in Poland, right? Too much snow, we don't like. And the other thing is, we also share traumatic history. You know, you have your very sad history during World War II and so on, right? And we have also that history of being colonized by colonial powers, right? So no historical baggage. We both share a traumatic history, and we both democracies, and we both middle powers, right? And we recognize that in this day and age, middle powers are a lot more versatile in moving in different directions and making breakthroughs, right? So I think potentially that's a big thing. The only thing is, I don't know why Indonesia and Poland don't see each other as middle power partners, right? We discuss bilateral relations that are good, the economic prospects are good, but on the international scene, somehow Indonesia, when we think about middle powers, we think about Australia, but Korea, Mexico, Turkey, right? And South Africa and so on, Canada, right? But we haven't really thought about Poland that way, right? And I think, I don't know if Poland should think about Indonesia in the same way. And I don't even know if Poland has a middle power mentality, because it's a special thing to think of yourselves as middle power and wanting to play that role, right? And I think one of the more serious challenge in the future will be civilizational issues, right? In the past, Samuel Huntington said that world politics in the 21st century is about identity, it's about values, it's about religions, it's about ethnicity, but it's about nationalism. And I used to hate him when he said that, but apparently he's right. And look at what's going on now, right? And look at what's going on with the Macron and controversy with the Islamic world, right? Just with what he said, he's potentially becoming the most hated figure in Islamic world. And I'm sure he didn't want to be that way, right? And I hope he doesn't stay that way, because it's not a good place to be. But it only reveals how relations among nations, among peoples, can be turned overnight into something bitter, just because of these difference or problems in the issues of identity and religion and sensitivity and so on. So I'm saying this because I know you have cooperation between Indonesia and Poland, interfaith, intercultural. I think the challenge is this: there's just so many meetings of interfaith where they just get on a plane, take the long flight, and make speeches, eat the satay, and then go home, right? And it's becoming too mechanical, right? And I met with Vice President Yusuf Kala last time when he was Vice President, just last year. And his complaint was there are just too many interfaith meetings. And it's just moderate people talking to moderate people, right? Something more or something new needs to be done. But I just want to flag it to you because there is an interfaith meeting between Indonesia and Poland. And please, let's see if you can make it less conventional, more impactful, and more, more original, if that's that's the right word, right? So again, that's all I need to say. Maybe just one last point. Europe and Asia is going to be a very interesting development in the coming years. We know there's EU, Europe-China meeting that was, I think, canceled. That was scheduled this year in Germany, right? but I think how Poland and Indonesia can shape that Europe-Asia relations is going to be a very important strategic question, right? Because again, our role as not China, but Indonesia, and not Germany, but Poland. So what is our thinking on the relationship between Europe and Asia? So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dino Jalal, for your very interesting observations. And I can only say that always the part of the strategy is always the economy. So although you are not economic and very, very needed. So thank you very much again. And now, last but not least, the representative of the Agency of the Investment and Trade of Poland, which has an office here in Jakarta, very important agency for us here at the embassy. Mr. Szymczak, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning from Poland. Good morning, Jakarta. Thanks, Mrs. Ambassador, for introducing me. That's the big pleasure to join this panel, and I would like to share with you some experiences regarding our cooperation on the Indonesian market. Let me. Next slide, please. First, let me say some words about the agency I work for. The Polish Investment and Trade Agency is a governmental agency supporting Polish exporters and foreign companies that want to invest in Poland. The agency has over 60 foreign offices all over the world. Of course, as Mrs. Ambassador mentioned, we have our office in Jakarta. It operates about 2 years, successfully operates 2 years. Our agency employed top-class specialists to help our clients in supporting export and carry out investment in Poland. We're a part of the Polish Development Fund Group, which support Polish companies and potential foreign investors to a very large extent. At the beginning of presentation, I had a plan to show some figures about the Polish economy, but Mr. Minister Siemaszko and other participants provided you with detailed information about Polish economy and mutual trade. So maybe I will concentrate on the key figures to show what is the most important, and I will do it briefly and shortly. Poland is the 5th largest country in European Union with rapidly developing economy. In the pre-COVID period, the Polish economy didn't experience a recession. It is very important. And in the difficult times of pandemic, the decline of GDP was significantly lower than other European countries. It is also very important because it shows that our economy is growing and it is a big potential for this economy and potential investment. In recent years, Polish has made a big leap, which is visible in the Easy of Doing Business Index. It is very important because I know that this indicator is a priority for Indonesia. So there is definitely space for the exchange of experience between our countries. Polish exports to Indonesia substantially increased in the last 2 years, but the trade balance is still negative. Of course, from Polish point of view. Our agency are doing our best to reduce this gap, which is now close to $500 million. So we are facing a lot of work. Next slide, please. Poland is a very attractive partner for cooperation in terms of size of the market, as well as its strategic place in Europe. Poland has developed transport as well as infrastructure and has easy logistic access to countries of European Union as well Eastern Europe. It is a very big advantage in case of potential investment in Poland, that the access to the markets is very, very easy. Next slide, please. I mentioned that Poland is the 5th largest country in European Union. Of course, I was thinking about the population. It is a market nearly of 40 million customers, representing 40% of population of Central and Eastern Europe. 23 million professionally active Poles represent a great manufacturing potential and a large customer market. This short overview, next slide please, shows that, that there is a great potential for cooperation between Poland and Indonesia. But the question is what to do, how to use this potential, and how to intensify economic cooperation between our countries. Before this meeting, I spoke to the manager of our office in Jakarta and asked him a question: what could help in the development of cooperation between our countries? He has ongoing contact with both Polish and Indonesian businessmen. They indicated that due to lack of cultural and historical ties, it is necessary from Polish side to develop a dedicated strategy integrating business with elements of culture and sport and tourism. We should look at our cooperation more broadly, so that our cooperation is not limited just only to single commercial transactions. I have a really big experience as a sales director in international companies, and I know that a good relation with client, it is not only business level, it is not only business relations. It's very important to make it wider. It means that to go into private relations and create something more than just only businesses. And it is extremely important when we are thinking about long-term and mutually beneficial relationship. Of course, in COVID time, the situation is rather difficult. We have no tools to do it. We are not able to make a face-to-face meeting. It is a really big barrier, but nevertheless, we are doing our best to overcome this barrier, to meet people online, to organize webinars. Let's be closer as we can, because without direct contact, business will be not successful in a long time period. The second important element, please go back to the previous slide, okay? Because it is also important, this right side part. The second important element of the promotion of Polish companies would be the creation of Made in Poland brand. Believe me that Robert Lewandowski, it is not only one important brand in Poland. Poland, it is a modern European country offering high quality products made according to European standards. That's the main issue which should be submitted for our customers. But I would like to also point out that on the Indonesian side, Polish businessmen are keeping their finger crossed to finalization of negotiation with CAPA. It is also very important. These fingers are still crossed in case of successful implementation of omnibus law regulation, and of course improvement of competitiveness of Indonesia on the market. Next slide, please. Speaking of business cooperation, it's worth mentioning the most prospective areas for our cooperation. Of course, there is not enough time to cover all branches that promise business, but let me draw our attention, your attention, to a few of them. Food products. Polish producers are very strong worldwide, and we have real significant successes also in Indonesia. We have completed the country recognition procedure, so the Indonesian market is open for our product. Especially the biggest successes we have in case of milk product, especially milk powder. Regarding cosmetics, it's could be better, frankly speaking, because we are also very strong in this branch all over the world, but we are facing certification, which should be done to open the Indonesian market for our products. But frankly speaking, I am very optimistic because our products are very good, and what is very important, the quality is very attractive. Especially specification is also very attractive because it is a natural product. So I am very optimistic that this branch will increase turnover in the nearest future. IT products. In this field, we cooperated with bank and telecommunication. Very good perspectives. So just waiting for first results. In case of railway, also one of the most promising branch for cooperation with Indonesia. We are cooperating, our companies, Polish companies are cooperating with the Indonesian Railway Association. So we also expect results in the nearest future. Of course, during COVID and post-COVID times, there will be a lot of business opportunities for in the medical sector, but we should know that success in this would be difficult because of trade restrictions, which could be for the export of this medical equipment to other countries. We are quite successful in Europe with telemedicine, and hopefully this part of this sector would be attractive also in Indonesia. And next slide, please. Sorry, to the previous slide, because I would like to mention about also about FDI. Next, it means this with branches. Okay. No, with branches, with FDI opportunities, with where it is written about Polish export. It's slide number 6. Yes, this one. Thank you very much. I would like to mention about FDI. Of course, our agency are providing any kind of assistance in case of for potential investor in Poland. Investors are more than welcome in Poland, so we are able to support their activities in Poland. I wouldn't like to list now and discuss all these branches, because the 6 branches which is listed on this presentation, that is the most important. But of course, there are many other opportunities to invest in Poland. Okay, and next slide, please. Finally, I would like to emphasize the excellent cooperation of my agency with Polish embassies in Jakarta and the Polish and Indonesian embassy in Warsaw. We implemented many interesting initiatives, and which have a very great impact with strengthening cultural and business ties. For example, in case of cooperation with Indonesian embassy in Warsaw, we are now proceeding with a series of webinars, and our agency giving a big support to organize it and to ensure that everything will be interesting for our customers. In case of cooperation with embassy in Jakarta, our embassy, Polish embassy in Jakarta, I would like to point out the most prestigious investment project of Rafaco, which was supported by our agency with the big support of embassy. So thank you, embassies, for your help. I see a lot of opportunities in the future. So, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Szymczak, for your valuable presentation.